Hello, my name is Daniel Yarker and I'm an asset specialist at Affinity Water.
Dan, thank you very much indeed for joining us today, the Affinity Water podcast series. Now, just tell us a little bit about what you do within Affinity Water and where we are.
So we are at the moment standing in a pumping station in a built-up area. Now, pumping stations are sites that Affinity Water use to pump groundwater from the aquifers. We then treat that and distribute it to our customers to provide high quality drinking water. The role that I undertake at Affinity Water at the moment is to help with the coordination and project management of our dry weather response. And as you can imagine, that's been very active through this year so far and is continuing through the winter.
So you're basically our water resources person. You monitor the water resource levels and their impact.
Yes, I'm one of a team of people that undertakes that activity to help inform the business's water resources position and really our drought status.
Well, should we just walk up these steps a bit to go a bit further up this site? And yes, we've got a nice view from the top. But why are water resource levels important to our customers?
Water resources levels are important because it tells us how much water is out there in the environment. As a water company, we take around 60 to 65% of our water from groundwater sources. Levels in the aquifer go up and down seasonally. They tend to peak around in the springtime, around April, May, and reach their seasonal low about where we are now. When groundwater levels are lower, then the amount of water that's available to us from certain sources declines, either because the water's not there to take, or because we're required to reduce the amount of abstraction, and that's the process of taking water from the environment from certain sites, or discharge some of the water that we abstract into rivers to help support the environment. So really understanding how much water there is out there allows us to operate our sources efficiently and continue to meet the water supply needs of our customers.
Dan, as you said, we're at the pumping station, but what are these metal posts popping out of the ground?
These are rain gauges, and we have rain gauges at a number of sites, and they tell us how much rain we've had at that specific location in a given time, and they're one of the tools that we use to monitor our water resources.
And you constantly look at these?
We do, yeah, we look at the data frequently in our analysis, not just from this site, but from a number of sites to help us give us a really regional picture.
And those are some of the data that will pop up on those graphs on your computer screen?
Yeah, absolutely, but we don't just look at rainfall, we look at borehole data to give us groundwater level, and we also frequently look at river flow data, so data collected by ourselves and the Environment Agency.
Constantly monitoring?
Yeah, constantly monitoring.
Dan, can you tell us about your drought management plan?
So, Affinity Water have a drought management plan that sets out how we will respond in the event of a drought event. It's a legal requirement that all water companies have a drought management plan, and really it sets out what we will do so that we know what to expect and what we're doing, but also so that our customers and regulators know what to expect. We track drought through a number of key boreholes or wells, and each of these have triggers associated with them, and the trigger increases as groundwater levels decrease. Some of the actions that we take against these predetermined triggers, one action may be to introduce a temporary usage ban. In the early stages of a drought, we step up our communications with customers. So this means that we talk to them more about the water resources situation, tell them what they can do to help, so telling them ways that they can help save water, and also communicate the risks to them that the situation may continue to become more serious. We also increase the amount of data that we collect from the environment to give us a better picture of the drought severity and how it varies across our catchments and supply area in case it worsens. If it does, and this happened this year, we convene our drought management group, which is a team comprised of individuals from across the business who work together to better manage the drought and monitor its severity. We prepare for the potential introduction of a temporary use ban, so that's used to be called a hosepipe ban, to help reduce the demands on our network. If groundwater levels decline further, and usually we say that 2 consecutive dry winters are required for this, then we may introduce that temporary usage ban that we've prepared for. In a really bad drought, we can apply to the Environment Agency to increase abstraction from certain sites. These are known as drought permits. The decision to implement a drought permit isn't taken lightly, but it is one of the tools in our armoury that helps us be drought resilient.
So if we look down at 2022, what actions have you already taken?
So we have been monitoring the situation very carefully and following our drought management plan, as have the Environment Agency and other water companies in the country. We formed our drought management group, and my role has been to help coordinate the group's activities and provide technical support. As a company, we've been discharging raw groundwater from certain sources to rivers to help sustain flows and protect the environment. We've built upon our business as usual customer messaging to help inform our customers of the water resources situation and tell them what they can do to save water. We've been reviewing opportunities to maximise the availability of our different groundwater abstractions and also potential projects which we plan to implement over the winter to increase the output from certain sites or increase the reliability, and all of this is aimed at putting us in the best position possible for 2023. We've also upped our leakage management efforts, and this will continue over the winter to help drive levels as low as possible.
And of course, we have got our draft water resources management plan out for consultation at the moment, and our customers can actually tell us what they think of the proposals that we're making within it.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'd really encourage everybody to go out there and review the draft water resources management plan.
Now, we know that it's been raining. It's been a very rainy November. We're told it's going to be drier in December. What's the water resources situation at the moment?
So groundwater levels currently are below average, and this follows really dry weather through 2022 as a whole, and last winter, which was drier than average. In fact, the January to August period this year has been the second driest on record since 1976, and this has led to groundwater levels declining faster than they would in an average year. It's also meant the soils in our catchments are really dry. Soils need to be saturated by water before we start to see really good recharge, and recharge is when the amount of rainfall that falls can actually work its way through to recharge the chalk aquifer. The wetter weather that we've seen since the last week of October has been really appreciated and has done a really good job of wetting up soils, and they're now at or approaching saturation, and this means that we have started to see groundwater levels increase in all of our three regions. So that's the central region that we're currently located in, and also our east and southeast regions, and this is really welcome and does mark an improvement in our position. However, it is important to stress that groundwater levels do remain below average, and there is a risk that if we get low rainfall for the rest of the winter, that situation may persist into next year, and this is a risk that we're preparing for.
Let's just walk on a bit. You are dependent on the weather and the rainfall, and often people will say, well look, there's been a lot of rain, why are we having to save water?
Yeah, absolutely. So the chalk aquifer is topped up primarily by winter rainfall. During the summer, a lot of the rainfall either runs off into rivers, is used by plants, or evaporates, whereas during the winter plant growth is less, the temperature's generally cooler, so there's less evaporation, so we tend to see winter rainfall contributing more to groundwater recharge. I think the important thing to stress is that for 2022 as a whole, we still are at a rainfall deficit because it was so dry last winter and during the summer, and that has resulted in groundwater levels being below average, which is where they are at the moment. But yeah, I mean, it is welcome, the rain that we've had so far, but we do need continued rainfall for that resource to be working its way through to the aquifer and to groundwater levels.
And do you and your colleagues, Daniel, let's walk on a little bit, do you keep an eye on the long-term weather forecast? Do you think, oh yeah, that's great, while the rest of us may be complaining about the rain, you're celebrating?
I mean, we'll absolutely welcome the rainfall at the moment. As I said, it's really helping our water resources position. Further rainfall is needed. There's always a bit of uncertainty with the long-range weather forecast, and really, as an industry and as a company, we need to be taking actions that prepare for the event of a dry winter, which is really our biggest risk in terms of drought at the moment. And then if we get rainfall, then it's a bit of an advantage.
So the monitoring is really important to you as a company, and the water companies do collaborate, don't they, on a drought management plan, looking together at what the resource situation is across the country and by water companies.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been working very closely during the summer of 2022 with water companies who we neighbour, so Anglian Water and Thames Water, and also water companies from across the country, as well as the Environment Agency. This means that we can make best use of our shared resources. So there are a number of points where we have imports and connections with various companies, and we also export water to some companies. So by talking together closely, we work together on how best to manage that resource. We can also share best practice, so what's gone well, what hasn't gone well, and with the Environment Agency and other regulators as well, that's a really, really important tool to help us manage live events, because really we're all in this together and we all need to work together to get through it.
And I bet if we were sitting in your office now rather than walking around this pumping station together and we looked at your computer screen, we might see rather a lot of charts and graphs. Is that right, Daniel?
Yeah, it is. Looking at data and graphs and charts is a lot of what I and others in my team do at Affinity Water to help inform us of where our water resources are and how groundwater levels are doing at certain key wells and boreholes that we identify in our drought management plan. For each of those, we have a number of drought zones, and where groundwater levels are against those drought zones informs of us of our water resources position and tells us what actions we should be taking as a company in order to protect our water supplies and the water supplies of our customers.
And as you said, we do have our Save Our Streams campaign, www.saveourstreams.co.uk, encouraging customers to look at their behaviour when it comes to water use in their home and their family's water use. But if customers want to know about the water resource situation at the moment, can they find it out?
Yes, absolutely. So we publish information on our website that tells customers what our water resources situation is doing in our 3 regions. This can be found by typing Affinity Water resources into Google, and this is information that we update on a monthly basis.
And so they can actually look at what's happening in their region and area.
Yeah, absolutely. While people are there, as mentioned earlier, I'd really encourage people to check out the Water Resources Management Plan 2024 consultation document, which was launched recently. If people want to have a more detailed look at our drought management plan, this can be found under the plans section on our website, and this goes into a lot of detail as to the steps that we will take during a drought event to protect the supplies of our customers.
And also you talked about a temporary user ban to the general public. That's called a hosepipe ban. As I said, Affinity Water hasn't had to implement one in 2022. Other water companies have, but we sometimes get asked quite a lot about that. There is confusion. So I presume also you can go to the website and see what the situation is at the moment.
We keep our website up to date in terms of our water resources status and also the likelihood of which we may need to introduce a temporary use ban. This is one of the steps and one of the actions that water companies may need to take if groundwater levels or water resources are below average, to help work with our customers to reduce the demands for water on the network. Although we haven't needed to implement one this year, if we don't get the required level of recharge and groundwater level recovery over the winter, then it may be something that we need to implement next year. And so we will work with our customers and regulators to keep people informed of the decision and lead up to that decision.
And we will be emailing them and letting them know should a temporary user ban have to be implemented during 2023. But meanwhile, final question, Daniel, and thank you for helping to educate us about our water resources and how Affinity Water monitors them. It seems to have quite a team of scientists behind you and colleagues working with you. What do you find enjoyable as a scientist about your role within Affinity Water?
I like the variety of the job at Affinity Water. It really appeals to me working with rivers and getting out there to try to understand what's going on and how things link together. I'm really enjoying the role that I'm doing at the moment, overseeing and sort of helping to coordinate Affinity Water's drought and dry weather response, because this is letting me use the various skills that I've picked up during my time at Affinity Water to kind of feed back into the overall process and sort of help ensure that we are enacting our drought plan and being drought resilient.
And it also underlies one of our brand values, which is to be stewards of the local environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Daniel, thank you very much indeed for talking to the Affinity Water podcast series today.
Thank you.